Hey everybody, and welcome to the Advantage Bar, your home for the shape of standard every single week. Hey everybody, I'm Maria Bartholdi, my co-host Riley Lane. Riley, what's up?
How we doing, everyone? It's great to be here. We're gonna take a standard deep dive here and sort the wheat from the chaff, figure out exactly what's been going on the last 7 days of standard.
And Riley and I will be your hosts on this show, along with a couple of experts. And this week we've got Cedric Phillips. What's up, Cedric?
Morning, Maria. My bed is made, my hair is combed, and I'm ready to talk about Ikoria Standard.
Awesome. We've also got Corey Baumeister dropping bombs. Hey, Corey.
Hey, Maria. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I am great. I'm excited to talk some shark typhoons with a bunch of sharks here.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll be talking to Cedric and Corey a lot more later on in the show where we talk about the standard metagame. Riley, I'm so excited for the beginning of the show, the first week. It's going to be really awesome. We're here at Ikoria, brand new format, standard, changing almost every single day. So lots of exciting stuff to talk about every single week. But before we get into kind of a deeper dive on standard, we're going to talk about the latest news that's been happening in the Magic world. And of course, one of the biggest items there was our MagicFest Online Weekend Championship that happened last weekend. Let's take a look at the winning deck list from that tournament. Rakdos Sacrifice featuring Obosh.
This is a list, a strategy and archetype, Rakdos Sacrifice, that is still a bit rough and raw. It still hasn't found its sort of final form yet, and I'm interested to see how things develop, not only in standard, but with this archetype in particular after its big win.
Yeah, this is a really, really cool list. I'm super into it. Whisper Squad, Serrated Scorpion, cards that you wouldn't expect to be a powerhouse in something like Standard, getting a little help from their friends Judith the Scourge Diva and Heraldic Banner, pumping them up, doubling damage with the help of Obosh, plus the pump effect from Heraldic Banner and Judith on top of that. Really sweet to see this deck win in the hands of Jammernaut, so congratulations to them taking down the championship this past weekend. But of course, they were not the only person in the top 8, some other sweet decks as well, and some big names in the top 8 as well, Riley.
Yeah, that's right. Look, if you've missed the coverage of MagicFest Online, it's a 24/7 stream. It's given us an opportunity to continue the gathering, a very important part of Magic, of course, and given people an opportunity to play high-level constructed Magic in their underpants, which is obviously, the way that a lot of people have
the dream.
Never played before.
The dream,
and maybe
Riley.
they're just finding, that's it. They're finding their hidden talents that come from slouching around an armchair and having a great time there at home. But no, look, it is very serious business when it comes down to it. Tens of thousands of dollars in prize money, and that's the reason you see some of the biggest names in the business. The event has been fantastic, an interesting way to begin to investigate Ikoria, with so many different archetypes represented, not just in the tournament, but also, Maria, in the top 8.
Yeah, the top 8 here, what I want to point out too, besides these big names that we have, is the deck diversity here in the top 8. Rakdos Sacrifice featuring Obosh taking the whole thing down. A couple copies of Temur Reclamation. Bant Ramp featuring Yorion in the hands of Canister. He's kind of popularized that deck. Jeskai Cycling, a really new cool deck on the stage here, as well as Jeskai Fires featuring Keruga, the Macro Sage. Let's take a look at our metagame and find out how it broke down across the tournament. Jeskai Fires featuring Keruga, 23% of the field on day 1, and in fact, increasing to 31% on day 2.
Yeah, it was a huge weekend for Jeskai Fires, very much establishing itself as the deck to beat. There's a lot for us to talk about here when it comes to Jeskai Fires, an old established archetype that got a considerable shot in the arm. But it's unsurprising to see big, hard-hitting heavyweights like Jeskai Fires, like Temur Reclamation, decks that have been around for a long time, given a new lease on life, right? Given a new, being powered up by some of these new cards in Ikoria. Unsurprising to see decks like this at the top of the standings.
Yeah, we've got Temur Reclamation, the second most represented deck on the weekend. Yorion Fires and Bant Ramp also featuring Yorion coming in 4th and 5th, followed up by the winning decks, Rakdos Sacrifice and Rakdos Sacrifice, one featuring Lurrus, one featuring Obosh, and we're going to get into that later, which one of those decks is better and why. And rounding out our top 10, Sultai Ramp Gruul Fires featuring Kahira, and Mono Red Aggro down there at the bottom of the list, Riley, just 2% in day 1.
What is going on?
0% in day 2.
Didn't make it, and this is something as well that I think it's very important to note, the fact that a lot of old familiar faces, some of them they got the goods. Ikoria came along and juiced them right up into the upper echelons of standard. Others starting to fall off the face of the earth. Sultai Ramp did not have a good weekend in the office, and Mono Red, a deck that you'd think would be so well positioned to punish all of these decks that are trying to go so big. 0 copies in day 2. So it is a time of great change in standard, Maria. And hopefully today we're going to crystallize some of that change and illustrate exactly which way the winds are blowing to give our viewers a chance to understand maybe how they want to prepare themselves for standard in the days and the weeks to come.
Yeah, let's take a look now and take a deeper dive into standard with the help of our experts.
Well, of course, Ikoria has had a massive impact on standard at more or less every level. We've seen new archetypes emerge. We've seen old archetypes with a breath of fresh air breathed into them by some of these new cards that have joined us from Ikoria. And so it's very important that we get across exactly how things have changed and how things have shifted. And we can sort of get an idea of what things are looking like, of course, with our metagame breakdown from the weekend's MagicFest Online. Jeskai Fire's at the top of the tables with a 23.2% share in day number 1, improved to 31.3% in day 2. So it really was Jeskai Fire's weekend. Temur Reclamation right up there as well. Yorion Fire's Bant Ramp, Bant's Rakdos Sacrifice, both Lurrus and Obosh doing very, very well. Sultai Ramp, Gruul Fires. And plenty of other decks there to discuss. Frank Huston, the man with the numbers, broke it all down for you this week. So you can get across a very detailed coverage there of exactly how those decks panned out. But I want to throw it over to the table here. Cedric, maybe we can start with you, mate. What are your thoughts on Jeskai Fires really being, I guess, the deck to beat? Is this going to be the case in the weeks to come, or are things going to shift?
It's been hanging around for a pretty long time now, Riley, this Jeskai Fires deck, and it seems like even though it is straightforward and you know what the deck is going to do, it's still incredibly, incredibly powerful. So we have seen in the past, especially at Mythic Championship 7 last year, where players built a deck in Simic Flash to directly target a strategy like this. Maybe we see that happen again in the future. Who knows? But for right now, those Jeskai Fires numbers, they look appropriate to me. I mean, that deck is incredibly, incredibly powerful. It's straightforward, but it's when you get that deck in the hands of great players like Apollo Victor Damarosa and some other players like that, they're able to make things play perfectly with the deck. I think it's outstanding. I think it's going to stay right near the top of the metagame.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it already was a major player before rotation, or before the new set, I should say. And having this, we're going to talk about companions in detail later on, but having this 8th card, having this Keruga, which synergizes so well and comes at such a small cost to the deck, it really makes a lot of sense. Corey, I want to check in with you about one of your favorite decks in the format, and Temur Reclamation. This is also a deck that's benefited greatly from Ikoria. What are your thoughts on this list? Is this again a force to be reckoned with? Is Temur Reclamation here? Is it going to continue to put up these numbers?
It definitely is, and it's not exactly anything new or flashy, but it is just a very powerful deck that is able to take advantage of these fire strategies and just go way over the top of them. It still does its same game plan that it's been doing, for the last 2 seasons, but now it gets this extra push with Shark Typhoon. Shark Typhoon is really the most important card when it comes to this deck, because not only is getting through counter magic very important, but the main thing is tackling to Fairy Time Reveler and then Narset Parter of Veils. Those 2 planeswalkers are so oppressive to Temur Reclamation's game plan, so having this free card that, draws you a card and you get to attack these planeswalkers down really adds an excellent element to the deck. And, you start with 8 cards now and you get a free draw engine with Keruga, so that helps a little bit as well.
Yeah, there's been again huge updates to old existing archetypes, but Maria, one of the archetypes that we've sort of seen emerge out of nowhere is built off the back of the companion that I was so underwhelmed by Yorion. Like 80 cards, we've been taught since the day we started playing, no, only ever play 60 cards. What are your thoughts on the Bird Serpent? It's wild to me that this card is reinventing deck building.
I know, right? You look at it, you're like, certainly this drawback must be enough of a drawback to not play this card in Standard. No way. This card is amazing. And we look at it in these lists and we see why. Its ability to blink stuff like Elspeth Conquers Death. Hello? That's just busted. I mean, it's amazing. And on top of it, you just got this huge flyer in your opening hand. Like, who wouldn't want 8 cards in their opening hand anyway? But also, it's a rare, and it's basically what your deck is built around. I think we're going to see a lot more of Yorion in the future.
I want to throw let's broaden the aperture here and look at the metagame. We talk about the major players, that's fine, but Cedric, for you, is there a deck that you think in this metagame in the sort of underrepresented, or is there a list that you've got your eye on as maybe the next big thing, the next up and comer?
I mean, it's really, really tough to say, honestly. This tournament and these results are so interesting to me because coming into the tournament, you look at Jeskai Fires, I think you can assume that the deck would do really well, but maybe some players would gun to try to beat it. Maybe some players did, and if they did try to do that, they failed. Now, we have seen Jeskai Cycling, we've seen Jeskai Winota, we have seen players try a lot of different things. For me, I'm going to be very interested to see how players finally massage those final slots in Rakdos Sacrifice and figure out which is the best companion for that deck. Again, I know we're going to talk about companions a little bit later in the show, but that is the kind of deck where, I just see players figuring out the little odds and ends and trying every single card out to figure out what the best way to build that strategy is. And ultimately, I would not be surprised if that ends up being at the top of the metagame when all is said and done.
I mean, there's so much potential. There's so much meat on these bones, the sacrifice list. And one thing, Corey, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this, mate, because one of the things that I always get very suspicious of is when there's an archetype with very little internal homogeneity. If there's a lot of internal diversity within an archetype, I immediately go, well, we haven't figured out what the best version of this deck is. There's so many different takes on the Rakdos sacrifice list. We haven't seen the best version of this list yet, have we?
I don't think so, but I am very interested in Obosh sacrifice list because I think we kind of proved that the Rakdos sacrifice, maybe the black-white sacrifice with Lurrus decks, are pretty easy to go over the top of with these Yorion decks, with these Fires decks. But what Rakdos has always done best in the past is get you dead. And Obosh does that so much better than Lurrus, in my opinion. I mean, doubling that effect of Mayhem Devil is just... It's game ending almost immediately if your opponent doesn't interact every single turn to try to stop you from assembling these very core combo pieces from Rakdos Sacrifice.
Well, maybe Obosh has the edge because, as you say, it is about getting under. It is about getting him dead as quick as possible. But Maria, one deck that historically has always wanted to get him dead as fast as possible. Red deck wins, but at the moment it really does look like it's red deck loses. What's happened to mono red?
Yeah, look at this: 2.1% on day one and 0%
actual
on
zero.
Day
it's not even.
two.
It's not even red deck loses. It's just red deck sucks. Like this is where we're at.
I actually want to know why, Riley. I want to know why, because here's the thing. Look at what all these top decks are doing, other than the Rakdos Sacrifice deck, is we're doing huge, big things that take a little bit of time to set up, right? So, in my estimation, doesn't that mean mono red aggro should be crushing? I mean, why is it not?
Yeah, it really is baffling. I mean, this is the deck that has got some of the most powerful cards in the format: Embercleave, Torbrand. Even the Javier Dominguez he's saddling up, he's ready to go, but the numbers just aren't there. I really, really want to find out more about the demise of mono red and whether maybe it can be retooled or rebuilt with something from Ikoria. We will see. Anyway, we're going to jump into to these lists that did very well. We want to break these decks down for you because this is going to inform your tournaments this weekend if you're playing the MagicFest Online or whatever you're hoping to crush your enemies with. So let's actually have a chat about some of the big archetypes that we saw do very well this weekend.
All right, Cedric, the first deck we're going to be taking a bit of a deeper look at here is Jeskai Fires, this time featuring Keruga. So this deck, as you said, has been around for a long time and had a lot of success. So what's new and different about it now?
Well, what's new and different about it is pretty simple. A little Beach Boys reference here real quick. Keruga, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take ya. Because this deck is just, it just got better somehow. This deck should have gotten better. It already had everything it needed. It's like a tournament-winning deck through and through. It's straightforward. Its power level is through the roof. Marcio Carvalho, of course, getting second place at World Championship 26 with the strategy. Look, the fact that this deck got a companion, it got Shark Typhoon, it's moving away from the Cavalier cycle a little bit to be able to play even more powerful cards. And then, of course, you're able to play Keruga because of how Bone Crusher Giant and Brazen Borrower work. This deck continues to be great. It's going to continue to iterate, and it is a deck that people can target. Deck to beat in my eyes. Best deck in the format, at least in this current state and time as we record this show.
All right, I got to ask you, Shark Typhoon, why is the card so good in the deck?
Just the flexibility, the fact that it can fight down to Fairy. Are you going to hardcast it that often? Not really, but the cycling of it, of course, Fires makes it so you can't tap your mana, which means that Shark Typhoon is, in quotes, kind of a third spell you can play on your Fire's turns. Cycling, of course, lets you draw cards, find more action. It just kind of does everything that you need. I know that when Shark Typhoon was previewed, it was kind of like, oh, that's kind of gimmicky and cool, a little reference to Sharknado, perhaps. No, this card is the real deal. It's a huge addition for this deck, and we're going to see a lot of flying sharks in Ikoria Standard.
Well, from Shark Typhoon to Shark Typhoon, it's also had a massive impact in Temur Reclamation, Corey, which is a deck that I know is very near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, I mean, Temur Reclamation hasn't changed a ton. It's still doing its same game plan of Wilderness Reclamation, giant explosions to the face, get them dead. But, you know, as Cedric was saying before, Shark Typhoon is the real deal. It really reminds me of Decree of Justice from back in the day. Getting that free cycle is just so very good. You get Essence Scatter as well, which is a card that, you know, we haven't had in a long time, but with all these huge creatures like Kenrith and Cavaliers and all this stuff like that, it's a really good counterspell right now.
Before Ikoria, it was hybridizing itself, right? It was sort of half Reclamation, half Flash. It was playing ambushes. It was also, you know, kind of had this weird, you know, feed in both camps kind of feel to it. But now it's pulled back. It's a lot less proactive. It's much more reactive. It looks to play a much more controlling game. And it does have these interactive options. It's got, for example, Scorching Dragonfire. Really important to have exile effects against the sacrifice decks. And Essence Scatter, which now, the most amazing thing about Essence Scatter, if we're going to be really honest with each other, is that Seth McKinnon managed to have even better art than the previous one where the goblin was turning into birds. I mean, that's really what we need to focus on. But no, look, this deck is more interactive.
Yeah.
They said it couldn't be done, but this is where we are now with a more interactive version of Temur than we've ever seen before. Are we going to continue to see Temur Reclamation decks be built in this interactive vein?
You know, I always thought the Ambusher plan was really good, so I'm kind of shocked that they went away from it. Like, I just thought being able to jam that against aggressive decks, the card really takes over, and even against control, having that thing to play on your opponent's end step is usually carries a lot of value. But I guess all we need is Shark Typhoon in this world, and there's really no need to just play Night Pack Ambushers when you can get Flying Sharks.
Well, guess what? We're not done with the Shark Typhoon chat just yet, because we're going to talk about Bant Yorion, Cedric, which, of course, is playing Shark Typhoon and a lot of other awesome cards. Tell me why this deck is just so filthy.
Have you heard about this Shark Typhoon thing? Have you heard about this? It's kind of everywhere now. 4 in this deck as well. Like, I don't know if this is the best card in Ikoria. Like, there's companions. This deck plays one of them in Yorion Sky Nomad. It's funny, right? Because now we're building up to 80 card territory right now, which, as Riley mentioned earlier in the show, you get slapped on the wrist about that back in the day. And back in the day was like last week, by the way. But all of a sudden, this is the thing you're supposed to be doing. This is the correct thing to be doing. And we have a great player in Canister, Peter Glogowski, doing it as well. And if he's not playing a sacrifice deck, Maria, this deck must be really freaking good.
Yeah, and speaking of that, talk a little bit about why Yorion just works so well with the cards that this deck is running. Stuff like Tameo, Collector of Tales, Uro, of course, something to blink, Elspeth Conquers Death, Agent of Treachery. That seems pretty mean.
I mean, if you want me to steal Corey's thunder, I'm happy to do so. Take that, Corey. Look, it's kind of like this. This deck has so many fantastic cards that you can just play 80 cards, and it's totally fine because you have so much manipulation. Omen of the Sea, Tameo, as you mentioned, Teferi Time Reveler. Ever heard of it? Super good card. You jam all these cards in the same deck. Sometimes you'll be able to play Yorion and blink all of them and get all of this value. And then for some opponents, like you Mono Red fans out there, if that happens, there's just no coming back, unfortunately, for you. And that was what happened for a lot of players over the course of this tournament this past weekend. It's too much value. It's too much for decks to overcome. And over time, you're going to win eventually, and that's all that matters.
Another take on Yorion that is, again, redefining the way that we build decks in 2020 is this 4-color pile of garbage. Look at this. Gabriel Nassif taking this very, very late into the MagicFest Online. And Corey, I know, once again, this is a deck that you just head over heels with, mate.
Did you say pile of garbage? Excuse
look
me?
at this.
Have you ever played Fire of Invention with Yorion? It is insane.
I mean, so for those of you who don't know what happens with Yorion and Fires of Invention, it is pretty disgusting. You can play your Yorion with fires, blink out the fires, empty your hand with actual mana because you don't have a restriction on how many cards you can cast anymore, and then the fires comes in back again next turn, end of turn, so you're back to having the status quo with fires again. It is gross, and it's a classic Nassif list here, and I mean, as I said, you're a huge fan. Tell us about this list.
Whenever you get that turn 5 where you get to play like 3 spells, you pull so far ahead. But this is going to be a hot take here. I don't really love this deck right now. I think this was a very good week 1 deck because Fires of Invention with Yorion is one of the most powerful things you can be doing against aggressive decks. But Fires of Invention against these other Yorion decks like Peter Glukowski's list is an insanely huge liability. Riley, I don't know if you've ever been on the receiving end of your opponent going Agent of Treachery, take your fires, play a Yorion, blink your agent. You're done. You're done. You have to drop from the tournament. You are completely done. And honestly, the biggest problem with this deck for me is it's trying to do 2 different things. And so it's not doing either plan very cohesively. You're not doing the Jeskai Fires thing quite as well as Fires. And you're not doing the Yorion thing quite as well as like Peter Glukowski's list. So you're really just kind of in that middle ground and you don't get to interact as well as I would like to. So I think this is maybe a list that's going to be a thing of the past.
And now we're going to talk about a deck that's a little bit odd. That's right, we're talking about Rakdos Sacrifice featuring the great Obosh here. The deck that took down the weekly championship for MagicFest Online. Cedric, how do you like this deck?
Well, Maria, oh my Bosh, do I like this deck quite a bit. This deck is incredibly, incredibly powerful, and it really boils down to Mayhem Devil. It's one of the cards you can play in this version that you can't play in the Lurrus version, which we will get to in just a moment. But I think it's this question of just how good is this card in the metagame right now. Of course, the damage adds up very, very quickly in combination with Obosh. And that's really the question you have to ask is this the card I want to be playing in my Rakdos Sacrifice strategies? Because a lot of the cards do overlap. Cauldron Familiar, Witch's Oven, we've seen the strategy through and through. We know how incredibly powerful it is. And Mayhem Devil was a staple. It's obviously a staple in this version. And for me, I like this version quite a bit, but there is that other one that's kind of looming out there.
That's right. Rakdos Sacrifice featuring Lurrus as the companion, which I think is a little bit older than this Obosh version, kind of version 1.0, as you will here in Ikoria Standard. So tell me a little bit about this version and how it's different from the Obosh version.
Well, Obosh, of course, you can only play odd casting cost cards, so you're looking at the Lurrus version where you gotta go a little bit lower, which means you do get access to some 2-mana spells, like Dreadhorde Butcher, and I don't want to forget about the old Priest of Forgotten Gods as well, which is incredibly powerful if it is not answered right away. And then Lurrus, I mean, this is the companion, it's a talk of the town. It's such an incredibly, incredibly powerful card and such a great attrition engine. But the big question, again, is which is the right way to go? What I find really interesting about this archetype on the whole is that this might be more of a metagame deck, where 1 week it's correct to play Lurrus, the other week, or the next week, it might be correct to play Obosh. And which one's better? Well, I think it's all dependent on the metagame, which gives you some flexibility as a Rakdos Sacrifice player. Now, hopefully you do pick right for the right week to play maybe this companion versus the other companion and build your sideboard correctly. But at the end of the day, both decks incredibly, incredibly powerful. But for me, I want to get a little odd, like Panic at the Disco. Pretty odd. Give me Obosh.
Finally, Corey, I want to get across a list that, while it didn't have the biggest metagame share, it actually put on it was one of the best performing archetypes of the MagicFest Online, with one of the biggest conversion rates into day 2, even though it was a smaller part of the overall metagame. It's Jeskai Cycling, one of the weirdest decks in Standard. It really overperformed this weekend. Flourishing Fox into Zenith Flare is a hell of a game plan, and it's also just one that a lot of people aren't ready to play against.
Yeah, and honestly, we saw a lot of these Boros-based cycling decks kind of take off immediately, but they haven't really gained any traction. But maybe these blue cards are really the push you need. The thing I love the most about this deck, Riley, is the fact that sideboarding against this deck seems like an absolute nightmare to me. Not only do you have to deal with these creatures like Flourishing Fox that get really big really quickly, but you have to deal with Improbable Alliance, Valiant Rescuer that go really wide on you, and then all of a sudden Zenith Flare has this like blaze effect to the dome where they can just out of nowhere deal you 7 damage and then 7 damage again. So coming from a blue deck, are you supposed to bring in a lot of removal and also negates? But then when you draw negates against their aggressive draws, it's pretty awkward. So it makes sense to me why this deck is good. And it also just can be so fast. So it really can attack from different angles.
The thing, this is definitely my deck to watch this week, because we've seen it within the space of the last week move from the Mardu colours into the Jeskai colours. These blue decks are being played. It now has startling development as a giant growth for its Flourishing Foxes. And I think we're going to continue to see this list develop. It's a 20 land special. It's very low to the ground. It's very consistent because of the cycling mechanic. And I think, you know, as we get closer to what the quote-unquote perfect version of this list is, it's really something that people are going to have to contend with.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing we can't forget about this list too is it is a Lurrus deck, and the thing that I have always been a little down on Lurrus in Standard at least is you're not bringing back these really impactful 2-drops like we would be in, you know, Modern, where we're bringing back Tarmogoyfs or whatever, but bringing back Flourishing Fox, all of a sudden the next turn you might be attacking for 4 or 5 with all the cycling you can have. So in my mind, I think this is the best Lurrus deck. That's a hot take right there.
Oh, mate, that is a huge call. This is one of the most impactful companions, and you think this is the best deck using it in Standard?
I mean, I'm not a big fan of the Rakdos Sacrifice list, so I'm going to say it. I think it is the best.
Those are the decks that you've got to keep an eye on if you want to flourish in Standard this weekend, and hopefully it's lit the path a little bit and help you decide what your deck of choice will be as you continue to contest this Standard format. Of course, things are going to change a lot as the format develops, and it'll be interesting to see where things head next.
Now we're going to take a deep dive on companions here in the show. Of course, they are showing up in most of the top decks in the top tournaments, and they have proven themselves to just be dominant in the field of Standard right now since the release of Ikoria. Cedric, I'm going to start out with a question for you, which I think a lot of people might think is relatively simple, but I think is a really important one to ask, which is just exactly why are companions so dominant and why are they so good?
Well, the short version is it's an 8th card in your opening hand. Now, there is a much longer answer to that question as well, with deck building and how games are played around discard spells and counter spells and all the other stuff. But at the end of the day, you keep an opening hand, you've got an 8th card off to the side here in your sideboard and a companion. That's an 8-card opening hand, which if I told you, Maria, that you get to start with 8 cards, I think you'd be interested in having that conversation. Now, again, there's so much that goes on with these cards that are incredibly, incredibly powerful. Lurrus, in my opinion, being the best of the bunch, and I'm sure we'll get to what I think our best of the bunch is. But at the end of the day, 8 cards! 8 cards! What are we talking about here?
8 cards. It feels a little bit like cheating to start with 8 cards. Corey, I want to ask you, we see these companions in most of the top decks, but not all of the top decks. So is anybody who's not playing a deck in Standard with a companion doing it wrong?
I wouldn't say necessarily doing it wrong, but if we would have looked at last week's results, I would have agreed with you because they just dominated week 1. But it makes sense why they dominated, because companions are really just mid-range machines, right? Like getting that extra card advantage. They have built-in card advantage built within them, and mid-range has been the best thing that you can do in Standard for a very long time. Just creature card advantage mixed with cheap interaction, so like Tireless Tracker and Rogue Refiner mixed with like Negate and Harness Lightning has been some of the most powerful things that you can do in Standard. And all these companions are the same thing, whether it's Lurrus bringing stuff back, Yorion blinking stuff to gain card advantage, Gyruda actually just putting cards in play. All of it enhances mid-range. But the one thing they do lack is specific amounts of interaction due to their deck restraints. And that is how they are going to be exploitable. With, Gyruda not being able to play Mystical Dispute, Keruga not being able to play Negate Gust. That's how we have to take advantage of these companions. And honestly, that's why we see like Temur Reclamation doing so well, because it's not trying to play this arms race with mid-range and trying to go over the top. It's sidestepping. And that's also why we're seeing these Jeskai cycling decks do well, because they're not trying to play to the board that much, and they're not trying to gain more card advantage than these companion decks.
All right, is it beat 'em or join 'em, Cedric? Which side are you on?
Corey, that was really good.
Thank you.
That was like articulate, and like it made a whole bunch of sense. And like,
He only,
look, man,
he only mispronounced like two of the card names, which is a new high for him as well. It was
all really. I mean, bravo! You are getting better and better at this. That was all nonsense.
Thank you.
Stop it. Just stop it. Corey, you are a standard Grand Prix champion. Grand Prix New Jersey a couple years ago. You beat me in day number 2 on your way to that victory. I think you would know better, young man. I think you would know better. You, at that tournament, do you know what you won with? Do you know what you won with? Do you remember?
I won with a combo deck.
Yeah, did you win with a card that was banned? Felidar Guardian? Yeah, you played the best thing! You played the best thing! What are you talking about? You played with the best thing! And when we go back in Magic history and we think about like what was the best deck at that time, it was 4 colors to Healy. What's the best thing going on right now? Companions! Don't play that without a companion. I know the team of Rec is putting up numbers, blah, blah, blah. You know what? If they could play a companion, they'd play a companion too. You got to be playing a companion right now. It's just that simple. These cards are outrageous. Let me say it again for the people in the back. 8 cards in your opening hand. What are we doing? Find the right one to play. End of discussion. I'm done.
Excuse me, Cedric. What were you playing at that GP New Jersey?
Let's
were
not
you a
talk
part of
about
history
me.
there? Were
Let's
you
not
a
talk
part
about
of history
me.
in that tournament?
All right. That's why my point is even more correct, because I didn't play the right thing.
So Riley, I've got to ask you too about companions. Is it nice that Magic has finally provided you with a friend?
All right. No, look, good beats. No, look, it's fair comment. You know what? It's fair comment. And beggars can't be choosers. And I'll take them where I can get them, Maria. But look, one of the things that's really interested me, because I'm obviously a filthy casual, self-avowed filthy casual. I make no bones about that. And you know when you're at your LGS, and one of the commander players comes up, she's like, oh, you know, I've got this is what you should be doing as stand. You immediately turn off. As soon as a commander player starts coming, giving you advice or their perspective on like standard or modern or competitive Magic, you're like, all right, mate, go back to your 100 card stack, whatever, right? But commander players know what's up. We know what's up. We've been playing with 8 cards in our opening hands for years and years. We've been building decks around legendary creatures that you start the game with, right? For donkey's years. So when a commander player like me comes and says, well, I know how good an 8th card is. You know, I'm 100% on Cedric's side here because these companions allow you to do things that break the rules of the game. If you play a companion, you mulligan, you go down to 7. I hear people saying, oh, you know, you shouldn't be playing Kahira in a creatureless deck because the Kahira is just free. Of course you should. Oh, the 15th card in your sideboard is so important. No, it's not. You bring it in like 2 matchups and you have to draw it? No. I would play a 6 mana 1/1 companion, right? If it happened to meet the deck that I already wanted to be playing. 8 cards in hand is no joke, right? You absolutely should be playing. Take it from a seasoned EDH veteran. Well, I'm not even that much of a veteran. Take it from a filthy casual, my friends. Take it from a filthy casual. These companions that's not the most convincing argument. I probably could have thought of a more convincing. Just play companions. Listen to Cedric. He's much smarter than me. He knows what he's talking about. Just play companions, man. Just play companions.
All right, we've talked about companions. We're either on board or semi-on board, somewhere in that spectrum. But what I really want to know is which companion is the best companion. Let's throw down. Pick your fighter. Which one are you going to pick? Let's start with Corey. Who do you like?
Oh, for me, it's Yorion. Not even close. Because here's the thing. The deck requirements for Yorion are the only ones that don't hold the deck back. You think 80 cards, and if you would have told me last week that I would be loving 80 card decks, or 2 weeks ago or a month ago, I would have thought you're crazy. Because, well, you should always play 60, like Riley was saying. But there's so many cards in Standard right now that do functionally the same thing. There's Growth Spiral, Grazer, Uro as far as Ramp. You have all these Planeswalkers that kind of do the same things. So then you get to play all these interactive spells, you get to play Aether Gust, you get to play Dispute. You don't have to discriminate against any disruption like you do with the other companions. Plus, having that just loaded gun effect of Yorion in your hand to be able to sculpt your game plan around this specific card and then all of a sudden have the most busted turn where you get to play not only a 5 mana 4/5 flyer, already good on rate, but you just get an absurd amount of value with all these omens, which were already good enough to see Standard, but now they're just insane. You get to restart your Planeswalkers. You just get to do it all. It's just so much better than Lurrus, but I want to hear Cedric defend Lurrus.
Yeah, Cedric, you're up. I don't know. That sounded pretty convincing to me.
Lurrus, everybody. Let's talk about it. Now, is it going to be the best one in Standard? I don't know. There are other Magic formats. There's Modern, there's Pioneer, there's all this other stuff out there. But at the end of the day, I think that Lurrus is going to, over the test of time, be the best of the bunch. It's incredibly, incredibly, incredibly powerful. And I'm not saying that Yorion isn't, because that card's also incredible as well. But I will say this. 60, I like a lot more than 80. No matter how good those 80 may be, I will play a 60-card deck. I've been known to play 61. Get a little lazy on cutting that last card. I've done that before. But never have I gone, I can't figure out 20 cards to cut. I'll figure out 20 cards to cut. I'll put Lurrus in my sideboard, and I'm going to rack up some W's. That's what I'm going to do. It's Lurrus all the way.
How about you, Riley? What's your favorite companion?
I mean, look, I've already nailed my colours to the mast. There's all the big brain, the top end of town, the people like Cedric, the Cedrics and the Corys of the world looking to squeeze every drop of juice out of the value orange. But nah, listen. I just want to play with Lutri. That's all I want to do. I just want, Lutri insta-banned, pre-banned, right, in Commander and Brawl, and so. But obviously a huge disappointment. I want to see someone. And maybe, I'm going to try to be this person. I want to see someone put together the Frank Carsten Singleton in Standard special, right? I want to play Highlander Magic in Standard because, that reward, I mean, it's a bad dual custom age, but still, it's a very cute otter, if that helps. Otters are great. Otters have little pockets. They keep their favorite rock in as well. This is something that I think has a very important bearing on the card when you're playing a 3-mana 2/2 that doubles one of your spells and also makes one of your deck just objectively a lot worse. Again, I'm not really selling it, but again, otters, all right, this is not a magic show anymore. This is now, welcome to Otterfacts with your host, Riley Knight. Did you know that otters, this is not a joke, otters actually have literal little pockets, like little pouches in their actual bodies. They're like that, and they keep their favorite rock in one of these pockets that they use to smash open clams. This is true. This is 100% true. Sea otters, they lie on their back. They'll put a clam on their bellies, and then they'll smash it with their favorite rock that they then keep in their pocket. Thank you for subscribing to Otterfacts.
Well, Riley, I'm just going to imagine you floating on your back with your new otter friend. You finally have one.
Yeah.
Just
finally
kind of swimming through the sea. It'll be really, really cute. And
just
we'll wait to see
mashing
who
clams
ends up
against
being
our
right
bellies.
about the best companion in Standard. We'll check back next week to see who gets the most points. That's right. I'm giving out points for who is right with the best companion.
All right, everyone, listen, that's enough of the high-end, spiky, we're going to win a tournament chat here. I want to drill into something a little different here. Ikoria is obviously super sweet. Very, very new and exciting cards, some of which have not necessarily got the love or the attention they deserve. So I want to run around the table real quick and actually have a chat with everyone about what their, I guess, pet card is. What's your favorite? What's the card that you want to see break out in Standard? Or maybe not even break out, but what's the card that you want to throw some love to? Cedric, is there a card in Ikoria that you just can't get enough of?
There's more than one, but since I have to choose one, I'm reaching on my desk for a prop, because I always have props. This is a turtle. Now, it's not a dinosaur turtle like Yidaro Wandering Monster is, but, it's kind of scary and threatening, and it could cycle it by throwing it away and drawing a card. Look, I love this card. I really, really wanted to see play. It's so cool. It has trample, it has haste. It's going to be a hard cast that you can cycle it a bunch. Come on, give me a dinosaur turtle one time, Riley.
It was played a little bit in the cycling decks to begin with and kind of fell off when but it's your fault, mate. They're now playing Lurrus instead of Yidaro. You've wrought your own demise there, Cedric, mate.
That's true. That's
anyway, Corey, mate, what about you? Is there a card that you think maybe hasn't got the spotlight it deserves?
Well, the thing I played from the very beginning in the Streamer Showdown was Is It Phoenix with Riley the Everwise. That card is just so unbelievable. Being able to go Cathartic Reunion, discard a couple cards, and just for 2 mana draw 5 cards is absolutely absurd. You can go Riley into Channeled Force, discard your whole hand, draw that many cards, plus draw the cards again. So you can just have 12, 13 cards. And whenever you get to bring back a bunch of Is It Arclight Phoenixes, I am always on board.
Yeah, I played a bunch of there in Brawl, and there's stuff like Cavalier of Flame and all sorts of other ridiculous stuff. Not to mention the Jumpstart cards as well. They're all so good multi-cyclers. So yeah. And it was very good of the R&D department to finally name a card after me. We look a lot alike. Sort of very, similar sort of vibe.
You're both Everwise. Yeah, you're both Everwise.
So true.
You guys, the name of this card is obviously Riel. Riel the Everwise.
No. Corey said it right. No, Corey said it
No,
right.
I like renaming it to Riley. That's
Yeah,
where
that's it. I'll PayPal you that money that I asked you to do that to do that there, Corey. I'll sort you
got
out
it,
for that.
man.
Yeah, no,
You got
Riley
it,
the
man.
Everwise is now the official pronunciation.
With
What
all
about
the
you, Maria?
otterfacts, you have to be Everwise here, Riley.
That's very true. That's very true, Corey. But what about you, Maria? Is there a little pet card that you want to see more of?
Yeah, I don't have a cute prop here to use like Cedric because I'd probably have to dig in the dumpster behind my office here to find some ooze for Umori the collector. You all know that I love creatures, and Umori loves creatures too, of course. It's a big 4/5 companion. Each non-land card in your starting deck shares a card type. That card type is creature, and spells of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast as long as you choose creature when Umori comes into play. So you're playing a lot of creatures, which I really, really love. You're getting a discount on these creatures. A deck that I really like that plays this card uses cards like Baby Godzilla to make mutate creatures cheaper. And then you're playing mutate creatures, getting insane value with cards like Illuna Apex of Wishes, which is just nonsense that when you mutate with it, you just get to put a permanent into play. That's right, just put it into play and you smash with giant fatties. I love this card, and Umori makes it possible.
Yeah, it's super sweet. My favorite thing about Umori is that you can name land. It doesn't do very much, but you can technically name land when you play it.
You would say that.
It helps with like Arixmathes in Commander at least. Anyway, I want to wrap things up here by saying that the card that I want to see, Migration Path, man. I just like they just gave explosive vegetation cycling. I mean, it's like, oh, naturalize, sure, have cycling. Explosive vegetation now is cycling. Like this card, it just seems so good, but no one's playing it. And I wonder if is it a thing where we've all sort of come together in a social contract and recognize like, oh, we don't want to be in a boring standard where it's just like 90% Migration Path decks. Like, what's going on? This card it's busted. It's bonkers, right? I mean, everyone agrees with me. No? Okay, all right. Well, look, we are really running out of time here. So we're going to wrap this one up, but there you go. Yidaro, Umori, Riley the Everwise, and Migration Path. I mean, these are cards that, if you want to get your creative juices flowing, you want to impress one of us, you put together a deck with one of them, we're going to be very, very happy indeed.
Hey everybody, we've got something really cool that we want to try with you all at home. We're calling them challenges, and every week we're going to have a new and different challenge for you to try and complete, and we might feature it on the show for the following week. This is a pretty crazy one we've got this week. Craziest Yorion Blink. Riley.
Yes, I mean, obviously Yorion can come and blink any number of non-land permanents, and I've seen some really, really silly stuff done. Like we saw just last weekend at the MagicFest Online, I think it was Nassif, who blinked out a Fires of Invention, right? Which is obviously great because it unlocks your hand, but also Omens and Oaths and Atlases and all sorts of other nonsense as well. So if you manage to clip or screenshot a moment where you have blinked out, I don't know, like 4, 5, 6 things, or just like 3 Agents of Treachery, for example. We want to see it. We want to share it. This is the content that people crave, and we want to give it to them.
Yeah, so use the hashtag PushTheAdvantage on Twitter. Tweet out, like you said, like Riley said, a clip of you doing this, a screenshot, something like that, and we could feature it on next week's episode. All right, everybody, happy blinking.
All right, my friends, before we wrap up here, we're going to make some big calls. It's time for bold predictions here. The 4 of us have all put our thinking caps on and are ready to nail our colours to the mast here with some predictions as to what we think we're going to see before the next episode of The Advantage Bar. Let's kick things off with Maria. Maria, what are we going to see in the next coming week?
All right, Riley, they call this segment bold predictions for a reason, so I'm going to go out on a limb here. All right, but you're talking about this at the start of the show. Why is mono red so bad? Why is it not being represented here on day 2 of the MagicFest Online Weekly Championship? It was, in fact, 0%. And so I'm going to make a super bold prediction that we're going to see more mono red come next week, maybe as much as 10% of the decks on day number 2. 0 to 10, baby. 0 to 10.
Mate, wow. Yeah, I mean, we didn't ask for italic or underline predictions. We wanted bold predictions, and we certainly go on from there. 10% metagame share from. Okay, all right. Well, we will see, and I will remind the viewing audience at home. We're gonna hold ourselves. We're not gonna let people forget these ones as well. We're gonna drag these ones out of the archives, and you know, we'll find some completely objective scoring system to make sure people are held to account here. With that in mind, Cedric, what have you got to say for yourself, mate?
Well, Riley, I am, of course, known for playing monocolor aggressive strategies, mono white, mono red, sometimes even mono green. I'm not really one to cast blue cards, but I am kind of thinking right now, these flash decks that people have been talking about that haven't been performing particularly well, it seems like it's their time to shine. Dimir Flash, Simic Flash, maybe even mono blue, who knows? But look, counterspells seem like they should be pretty good right now. Frilled Mystic, some other blue cards seem like they're pretty powerful. I'm looking and hoping and even boldly predicting we're going to see some flash decks on here next week.
Yeah,
Maybe
but what
Slither
percent of the
Whisper
field,
too?
Cedric? Come on. Make a bold prediction.
Sure, let's get completely arbitrary. 6.7%.
All right.
Precisely.
All right, I like the
Karsten.
granularity. I like the granularity. That's really good.
Thank
All right,
you.
Corey, what about you, mate? What's your bold prediction? What are we going to see in the coming 7 days?
You know, my bold prediction is definitely relating to Cedric's here because I think he's right. I think there is going to be some flash decks that are going to be coming out. I think there is going to be a lot of decks.
Copied off the kid next to him. Didn't do the homework. All right, cool.
right.
We all see through it, Corey.
I got a different direction to head, that's for sure. I think these decks are going to come up, and we're seeing like Temur Reclamation play a lot of counterspells, even Yorion playing counterspells. So my bold prediction is I think Jeskai Fires is going to answer these style decks by switching back to an old school sideboarding plan they had where they played Robber of the Rich, Tithe Taker, Legion Warboss, Aether Gust, stuff like this. And you're like, wait, we have Keruga. You know, you can't play those cards. I think Jeskai Fires is going to ignore the companion for post-board games against some of these decks and then just go towards these creatures that are really good against these counterspell decks, against these slower decks. And I think they're going to have some success.
Right, like that actually makes sense. For those who don't know, if you have a companion in game number 1, you don't have to play in game number 2. You can bring in all your 2-drops and cut Keruga, leave it in the board without ever actually casting it. That's an option that's available to you. So yeah, I mean that kind of tracks. We'll see if you're right there. But I want to ask all of you here today. Ever heard of a card called Quartzwood Crusher?
No.
Probably not, right?
No.
Of course you haven't. No.
No.
It's a 5-mana 6/6 trample, and it's one of the centerpieces of the Gruul Fires list. It's going to top 8 next week's MagicFest Online. This card, this deck, it's rough around the edges. It hasn't been refined, but it is good on a sorcery speed little kid magic. Embercleave, enormous monsters, trampling over for 1,000 billion points of damage. The deck's not finished. We haven't seen the perfect version of it. It's got Vivian Monsters Advocate. It's got Quartzwood Crasher. It's got Questy Bee. All the big hits. We're going to see some little kid magic in the top 8 of the next match. That's my big call. That's my bold prediction. Quartzwood Crusher is going to be the star that we are adulating next week on the Advantage Bar. Mate, you've heard it here first.
Have you read the card Elspeth Conquers Death, Riley? Just
You know what, Corey?
Just
Mate,
saying, whatever.
No, sorry, that's the producer, and we are out of time here. So no, we unfortunately we have to wrap things up.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for hanging out this week. It's been awesome. We got Riley, Cedric, Corey. We're going to be here every Friday morning on YouTube. Come watch the Advantage Bar. We're of course also going to be on social media. And don't forget to submit videos and screenshots for a challenge with the hashtag #PushTheAdvantage. It's been awesome, guys. I can't wait to see where Standard goes in the next week because blink and you'll miss it. Wink, Yorion, because things are changing almost every single day and you're going to want to stay on top of it. So be sure to join us here next week for more of the Advantage Bar.